Hi, yeah, this is William Nimick. I am a KL2PQ ham radio in Exile. Those of you that haven't seen this channel before or anything, I'm an Alaskan. I'm in exile fighting to get my farm back. And basically I'm fighting to protect the way of life in Alaska bush. Alaska's the last frontier, and we have many enemies trying to destroy our way of life and ruin our culture. And it's gotten very extreme, and I'm a ham radio. I like to build tubes and work with tubes, and I'm a farmer, two-cylinder John Deere tractor farmer type of guy, and I lived in the bush about 35 years on my farm until the government has taken it away. Now, it's the middle of the night in Mindanao, and the reason I'm doing this channel this time is I have a dedication to do it. I've got some phone calls from Fairbanks and around, and so what I'm doing now is that I'm going to make a presentation by request and my own initiative also. I've decided, my background as a Christian, I've left 3 times the U.S. trying to avoid violence. I'm a veteran. I enlisted in 1972, and I went my whole tour. I got out, and it's a very long story, but I was going to become an officer, and then in the end of the Vietnam War, the President Gerald Ford lied, and I was going to stay in the service, and then I got out. I was going to go to Fort Lewis RA school, and then anyway, but going back to what I'm trying to do, it's the middle of the night right now, and I made a really difficult presentation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why I have this channel is I'm trying to get public support to protect the way of life. I am a 5th generation homesteader, and I'm probably legally under the record, of course I can't see it, I'm probably the last real official homesteader that got a title by prove-up and by improvement of a property by ownership by real homestead rules. When I was signing off on my homestead, they tried to change that, and they tried to make it where they just give it to me and not comply, and I rejected it. I said, I made a contract with you, and it's been my heritage for many years to earn my way. And my last family farm filing in my family was in 1916, and then I was the next one. But anyway, for those of you that are familiar with me, I'm making this video dedicated to the people in Nenana and homesteaders around me that know me, and my adversaries especially. I want you to watch this carefully, what I'm saying. Now, I'm a strong believer, and I don't believe in being, have any kind of wickedness, or I don't believe in power, money, and socialism. I believe in, I'm a farmer and a homesteader, and that's how I live my life. Now, the reason this is being done this way in my request is because some changes have been made. And so those of you in Nenana, Alaska, or in the tribal council in Nenana, Alaska, or the homesteaders in the outsiding area, if you're newer there and you're not familiar with what was going on, I'll give a little bit of background to explain the last time I was in George Hall. Now, George Hall is kind of the center of the tribal government in Alaska. That's where we have the most important family type of ideas that come about and work, like if there's a funeral or a potlatch or something of a nature that's really important to how the people really believe. It's usually at George Hall, not at another part of the town, because most of us are more comfortable with being there. Now, anyway, the last time in George Hall we had a meeting with government was we were trying to stop burros from taking over Alaska. Now, those of you that don't know the history, I'm going to have to touch on it really quick, and so you get some pieces of the background, because it probably doesn't make any sense. at first. In the beginning of the Denali borough, I was a farm there, and it got really bad with the government trying to force boroughs. Agenda 21 was the foundation, and control all of rural Alaska. And rural Alaska is up for grabs for fighting because different people come there. A lot of people come to Alaska to be free, to start over their life, to be left alone, to not be entangled in the corruption of government of the lower 48. And another faction comes there of a frontier to grab for power, a controlling socialist way of life with a miserable quality for them. It's a very crazy atmosphere for them. Anyway, we fight this back and forth. So Alaska has had a major political party, a Libertarian Party. They took control of the state, and then they were attacked by outside forces, and then the Alaska Independence Party took over. They were attacked, and now we have the crooked slide rule elections of things of today in Alaska because there's a minority special interest group that controls the state. Now, I absolutely don't believe in conspiracy theories, and so I'm going to lay down on here. So this is kind of complicated, but ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the lower 48 or anything, please be patient a little bit and try to help, try to see me get through this thing, because it's kind of like standing in the middle of a pressure cooker. Now, back a few years ago, when I started building my farm and they forced this type of government, the leader of the university, Dr. Wood, and a friend of mine, Joe Vogler, which was the head of the Alaska Independence Party, which was the leading power of the whole power structure of Alaskan government, was the Alaska Independence Party at that time. It had taken over the Libertarian Party when the Libertarian Party got crushed by some really devious outside forces. And so we built a new party. And so at that time, when all this come into place, one other man I want to talk about, there was 4 of us in a meeting, and the other one was Bobby Miller, and he's the man that put the steel in the Alaska pipeline. He sent the steel to Japan, and he was a very close friend of mine for a very long time. Anyway, he sent the steel to Japan. He bought a military motor pool, the whole thing. And he sent the steel to Japan to come back as the pipe. And these guys, I'm telling you what, they loved Alaska, they loved the freedom, they loved our state. They were great men, and they were really admired by me. Anyway, I was honored to know them. Anyway, what happened was, when this takeover come about, I'd already had conflicts with this type of interest before, and I'll touch on that a little bit too. But for right now, we went and had a meeting in Fairbanks, Alaska, because the government was forcing borough controls of rural areas of people that didn't want it, and they were making it fictitiously looking like the people were pushing for it, and it was not true. It was false and lies, comprehensive use plan, land use plans, which were not true. And so it got a lot of attention. So anyway, we had a meeting in the Sunset Inn in Fairbanks, Alaska, and Dr. Wood was there, and he was very famous. They have the Wood Center at the university. He was the leader of the university. These guys are passed away now, but I want to tell you about them, because in this meeting that we had, we were in a place called Sunset Inn. So we were trying to figure out how we're going to put the voice of the people to push back this government that's coming at us. And so Bobby Miller and Joe Vogler. Joe Vogler was an attorney that passed the bar in 1936. And he was head of the most popular political party in Alaska, the strongest one. And then of course, I told you about the university. Bobby Miller was a self-trained man. Bobby Miller grew up farming in what is now part of the city of Fairbanks, and he was a hardcore homesteader way back in the old days. I seen a photo of Bobby Miller, I don't know, early 1915 or something, I don't know, and it was an amazing picture, and I never did be able to get it to him because he had died before I got him a picture of it, a copy of it, but anyway. Let's see. Anyway, in this meeting, we come up with the idea of what to do. Now, the Fairbanks mayor at that time was made Bill Wally. We called him Wee Wally. He was very popular and everybody really loved him. Anyway, he was running the radio station and he was also the mayor of Fairbanks. He did the research for us and we had this big meeting and we drew up a plan of a petition. So when we got the petition together, when we implemented it, anyway, we wrote it. Oh, it's kind of funny. When we wrote the petition, it had to be broken down in different sections. So Dr. Wood, he called the waitress over there, and this restaurant was pretty fancy and had these big paper placemats that put your meal on. He says, "Can I have a placemat?" And he took it and flipped it upside down, and he broke it all down in sections, and we started narrowing and working it down. It was amazing. I had a man that was the head of the university, and we had another man who was a lawyer, and he was the head of the Alaska Independence Party. And then we had Bobby Miller, which was a shake and bake homesteader with no education like they had. And when we started putting it together, we were so amazed. This Bobby Miller was a genius. I mean, this was a smart man. And he made Alexander Hamilton look good. I mean, he was quite a guy. And anyway, so when we put it together, it was very interesting to hear these old timers talk back and forth because I was at that day young. I'm their age now. But anyway, and so when we wrote the petition, we got it together, and then I implemented it. And so I put together a team down by Nenana, Alaska, and we had volunteers a lot, all up and down the highway, all the way to Campwell. And so when we made the petition, and we got it finished, it was called the Last Frontier Petition, and it was to stop aggressive, progressive government destroying rural Alaskans' life. So when we implemented the petition, I put some in Cantwell, my people working with me did. We implemented the petition in Cantwell, Alaska, in Healy, Alaska, and Nenana, Alaska. Now, after the petition got out, everybody wanted to sign it. I mean, we knew what was happening, and at them days, Alaska's culture was very tough. Leave me alone. We want to be free, and a lot of us were in support of tribal government, which is, even when you're white in the bush, native sovereignty is very important because tribal government is very effective. And it doesn't bother anybody, and it has nothing to do with help and decisions, and there's a lot of discovery to be made there, and it's a way of life, it's our culture, and so we also wanted that protected. And so when we put out the petition, the one in Cantwell got stolen. We couldn't believe it. Somebody went in a business and took it. Then the one in Healy got stolen. Well, in Nenana, Alaska, a friend of mine, Edmund Lord, and his mom, Anita Lord, they owned a restaurant in Nenana, and these are tribal people in Nenana. Anyway, a woman got caught in the restaurant behind the till stealing the petition. So we caught her, and people are pretty upset. So the pastor of the church was named Jim Ballweber, and he got right in the middle of it right now. And so he called the United States Marshal. This point of this move is really important now. You need to remember this, especially if you're an outsider. We need some support. I got a real war on my hands, and I have a Mennonite background with passive, very passive and very kind. But I am going to fight with all my might now, with everything that I can. And I believe in the rule of law, I believe in God's word, and I believe in being good to people. And I support native sovereignty right to the top. Because we have the right to be free and be left alone in rural Alaska. We have a loving way of life that's non-violent, by the way. And especially in a tribal area, these people are very nonviolent. Anyway, so when we got this petition out, and it got stolen in these two communities I just told you. We caught a woman stealing it in Nenana, Alaska. So Pastor Ballweber got a hold of the United States Marshal, because the reason he called the United States Marshal was the woman that took it, when we got her, she was working for the state. The state told her to steal these petitions. She was in a business, in a restaurant, behind the till, behind the cash register, with her hand on a petition, stealing it, and we caught her red-handed. And so the idea of government was, well, it surely isn't going to be too smart to call the state, because Alaska is very far from the lower 48, and things there are kind of all tangled together in a power structure. And we knew there was a problem because a lot of us have friends in law enforcement, and especially back then, and now I'm older, so most of them have passed away or retired, but we knew there was some bad business going on. And so in them days, I'm going to tell you, a lot of the state troopers did not want this takeover to happen either. And so they had to watch it easy or they'd lose their job. But anyway, so the U.S. Marshal, he was a really good man, and he was almost ready to retire at 30 years. And we told him that the woman got caught and she was from the state. And he says, well, that's a crime. He says, that is a petition? Yes, sir, and many signatures are on it. The other ones are already stolen. He said, I'm coming. He says, I got a rule here. He says, I got to call the U.S. District Attorney. He says, but I am coming. And he has to be notified. And so he calls the U.S. District Attorney, and it didn't go well. And then the U.S. District Attorney said he can't do anything. And the man said, well, I have to. Because he was an Alaskan character. I mean, he was, oh man, we can't let this go away. But anyway, and the U.S. District Attorney threatened his retirement. And he's almost ready to retire. And then it got really bad, so he called us back, and he said they have threatened my retirement. And he argued with the U.S. District Attorney, and he said, look, he said that this was stolen by a state government, not by a private person. This is a crime, this is a theft, this is a trespass. And it's stealing the right of vote. He said, that is in my jurisdiction. I have been called to do this. I got to do this. And then he called us back, and he said, look, I'm coming. But I says, they threatened my 30-year pension and everything, and they have the power. He says, in Alaska, the U.S. District Attorney is kind of like the head of operations for the U.S. Marshals. And he was going to do it anyway. He was really upset because he realized he could lose his pension. Well, I'm a young fella then, many years ago, and I'm not like now, I have a lot more wisdom, but we got worried. So we had a meeting at the church, and a bunch of us got together in Nenana, and we decided we don't want to hurt this man that looked 30 years to take his retirement pension. We're going to tell him to not come here, and we'll have to try to find something else. Now that I look back on it, it was a big mistake. Now, I want to tell you something. Hindsight is good, but I'll tell you what we should have done. Ted Stevens was still a senator back then. He was way young, but he was a good man. And nowadays, what we should have done is said, yes, come and get it. We should have immediately, a bunch of us got a hold of Ted Stevens and say, we need you to protect the U.S. Marshals, this U.S. Marshals pension and everything, and step in there right now because he's at risk. And now that I'm older and smarter, I'd have done that. But in them days, we got feeling sympathetic, and we told him not to come, which was a mistake that affected the whole reality of the state for a lot of years, including my personal life. But I'm backlashing on here. But those of you in Nenana that are younger, I need to tell you this. The state of Alaska got caught being underhanded and dirty and breaking the law. You cannot steal a petition, and there's a record of it. There has to be, because the U.S. Marshals have to have records, and some of the people involved, now Jim Ballweber has passed away, but his family's still alive, and his wife, I think, is still alive. A lot of people know about this to dig up some proof in history, but a lot of old timers in Nenana there, they probably know too. But I want to tell you, I do not have permission from the village elders to use their name or to do anything of a political attitude from them. Now, you got to understand the way tribal government works. You have to respect the elders, and there's a way to be good. I mean, I'm going to tell you, this is a clean way of government. And I do not have any authority or anything to have any voice for anybody there, but I can tell you how they've helped me in the past. Anyway, so after this went away, and it got worse and worse and worse, and then they established a borough, and then we kicked Nenana out, because Nenana was a place where the person got caught stealing it. So they broke another man that's passed away that was a ham radio operator too, Cecil Gates. He had a lot of political push, and he was pretty smart. And anyway, he backed them off and backed the border off, and so they left Nenana out of the progressive borough, and the borough went over my farm. So what happened was, when this happened, they were getting together a mayor and all that stuff, so I was running because I wanted to get control of it and stop it, and they put it in. So on the way to turn in my papers, get them finished, I got into an accident, and so I was working for Edna Hancock at Yukon-Koyukuk School District, and she was, later in life, she became my friend. And later in life, as I got older, things changed a lot, and I really become to liking her. She was, at first, we had a real hard time, but after a long time, and I got around the culture a lot more, and her, I really started having a lot of good ideas. In fact, I miss her. She's passed away, and it's a sad thing, but I learned to have strength from her and endurance a different way than I knew before. So anyway, get back to where I was at. This petition is gone, and there was a copy of it that I kept with many, many signatures. And when they took my farm, they were after that. And they didn't even want me getting back on my land to get my copy. I'll get into that later, but they stopped me from going there. And years later. But anyway, when we got this petition going, then they did establish a borough from south of Nenana over Cantwell. Now, the borough had already been kicked out of Cantwell before. They had put a borough in there before, and it was a big scuffle, and it was kicked out. Now it's there again. Anyway, so as this progressed, I ended up in office to counteract what was happening to the land with the land controls. They wanted a property tax. Got the taxes stopped. We got all the property tax stopped, and their charter changed, and boy, they were not happy over that. And then I got into office, and I was in there 2 terms, and then it got really bad. And then anyway, it got extremely hard on my family because we were taking a lot of abuse. And then I fought for this over and over. But I want to break up the point again. In the beginning, the state got caught stealing in the first place. And then my interactions with the state got worse and worse and worse. And to the point that it is now. And making this movie is important to make it tonight. It's the middle of the night here, but there's some things I have to cover from a time-sensitive reason, and I'm going to go back on some things. And one thing I want to tell you, I do believe in the constitutional rights. Everybody has freedom of religion, freedom of expression. I mean, I believe the law is great. But I'm going to tell you, we're having a problem with this because of a special interest group. And 2 special interest groups now are really aggressive. They don't like the freedom of the bush. When they get around people that live in the bush, trappers or anything, they just don't like them. They don't like native people that are free and strong and outlaw. And they said, you ought to see it, how it's really like. You could make a good motion picture of this thing. Anyway, so what happens is there's a lot of animosity. There's a big push for control, and it's just crazy. But anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is one of the biggest factions in this push for control, especially in Indiana right now, is the Utah politician. Now, I'm going to use this word right. Now, there's rules in YouTube and a lot of things, so look at this close. The Utah politician is a social group, and that's a kind way to talk about it. And there's another social group, and these are the minority controlling the state, and the other one is the socialist globalist movement. Now, because Alaska is way up here, away from everybody, the Constitution and the checks and balances system of what you would call public law is completely violated. The Alaska Superior Court is absolutely 100% weaponized. I seen a magistrate years ago just get cooked by him because he ruled against them in the favor of some local people versing the state. In the state of Alaska, when you're a magistrate or a judge, you can't rule against the state. The state calls the state the people, but it's not. But you're in big trouble. And this magistrate, he ruled in the favor of some fishermen, and they just cooked him. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that this is an extreme weird-looking video to you. You're from the outside. But I am living in Mindanao, and I farmed for over 30 years. And I had to leave, and it destroyed my family fighting these guys. Now look at, I'm gonna have to find a way to reach the public, or I'm gonna hurt all my neighbors, everything, because they are really aggressive right now, and I'm not the only one that's been hurt. Many Alaskans have been shoved out of the state. There's been contractors in Fairbanks that have had to leave. When you start dealing with Superior Court and the coals in Alaska, look, this is not a conspiracy theory. These guys are mean, and this Utah power structure is absolutely unbelievable. And I have had a lot of trouble, and I didn't realize until some phone calls that I just got just how much close detail they were to me in my farm. That's one of the reasons I'm up here in the middle of the night. The thing of it is if good men do nothing, wickedness is going to take over. And it's happening in Alaska, and I'm going to tell you, rural Alaska is a beautiful way to live. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Now, I'm a fifth generation homesteader. My family's always homesteaded and went out, and I grew up with my grandpa's place. And we've always lived this way in my family, and my mom's family was the same way. My mom was Chickasaw, but they always farmed and moved to farm too. And so my background is always been in my history to love America and to farm and to be creative, and to both of my sides of my ancestors were strong believers in the Lord, and so that's how I am here. Now I am about flat busted in Southeast Asia from fighting all these things. I went back to Alaska 3 times, and it's got bad. A time and a half back, I went back. I ran for governor of the state of Alaska. And they changed the election system to this sliding rule thing, and it's crazy. They take your votes and they assess what you might vote for somebody else, and they split the votes around and they recount the votes. And it's a popular breakdown of voting. It's a really ingenious way to keep control. And the sliding rule of voting is if you get so many votes and so popular, your votes slide over somewhere else, and it is terrible. When I first got in an election and didn't have that system, I had to go out and get over 70,000 signatures to get on the ballot. And then when they changed it to sliding rule thing, anybody can just go apply. Of course, they're going to keep everything in their twist. And then the APOC statement was so difficult. That's Alaska Public Offices Commission. And I was taking the heat so bad. I had a college professor helping me do mine, and it got to be something. And I had 2 attorneys in the lower 48 reviewing it, and they couldn't believe that this could happen in America. But anyway, it's hard to come in here. Now, basically, this channel is a KL2PQ. I'm a ham radio builder and operator, and I'm not smart as these guys on YouTube, but I love radio, and I want to show ways to do it. So in this, I'm showing a way to teach a way to build tube radios that is simple enough that if you're a basic mechanic, you're going to get it. I'm going to go slow and teach about tubes and circuits. You're not going to have to be an expert in math. You're not going to get overwhelmed by these 3 different circuits coming at the same time, because like 3 different circuit ideas coming at once is not that complicated, and I'm not very good at it. And I have a ham radio license, and I took all the tests, but it's hard. I know logarithm math to me is very difficult, and so what I'm trying to do is in my class is I build a machine to help. When you wind a coil to get your frequencies to work in radio, how you can see it work and how you can learn that way, and that's part of the program that's not talking about right now, but I showed it on my prior videos, and here's the radio that I'm really going to build, and then get into parts ready. Now, Southeast Asia, parts are hard to get, so like on my last video I told you I had to get one of these for the new part that I'm making, and I finally got it coming, but it's going to take another 2.5 weeks to get here. And it's really hard to get parts here, but I want to keep the interest in ham radio, and I believe this here. I better back up a minute before I get any farther in this video, because you got to get close and personal to know what I am. So I'll give an example of how I would think and make a judgment call, and because of my how I believe in God and how I believe in things. It's this way here. I'll use a combine. A combine is a thrasher, for grain. And to get back to the basic structure of me and how I reason, if I have a fancy thrasher combine and I bring it to my farm, and it's on payments, and it's got a contract, and it's got to have a technician, and it's got to have agreements to get parts and all these things through everything around you, and it's modern, worth $500,000, and so they are today. And all of this stuff that's in this maze for you to have this new machine, my personal belief in God is this here. In your harvest, you never let anything happen in your harvest between you and the Lord. You got to work hard with your hands, but you have a responsibility not to let anything outside get into what you're trying to do. And so in my combine, I can build all the parts, and it's a 1962 or 64, I guess. International Massey Ferguson, and I have redesigned it, and I have improved it greatly, changed the building of it a lot. It's a beautiful machine. And if I break down or I need a part, I can build my own parts, many of them, or I can get a part easy or already have them on hand. So I'm never going to get caught critical where I got to depend on somebody else for my harvest. I can do it myself, and my belief in technology, even tube radios, I can build the radio myself, and I don't have to depend on somebody else controlling me or having to have some kind of agreement with an outside force. It's not of God. I believe the man is a small, simple farmer and building his machinery, and you can have modern machinery and build it yourself and everything, but you can have control of your environment and not let somebody else get in the middle. And that's how I believe about living in Alaska in the bush also. And that's kind of also a native way of reasoning. So anyway, so we'll get back to, this is a hard video to do today. We'll get back to what's happening right now in Alaska. Now, I went through many, many attacks by outside interests, and they got that crazy. Anything from arson, falsifying records. They falsified me from disturbing wetlands, and they got into a terrible deal, and they almost lost my farm with that. But the federal government saved me. They stepped in, the U.S. Soil Conservation Service, her name was Ann Rippey, and she saved the day. So I might have spoke on this earlier. But the reason I'm bringing this up tonight is that I'm going back to Alaska, and this time I'm going to fight with everything I have. But I wanted to explain to you this Utah politician's special interest. In the town of Nenana, they're very progressive, and in the town of Nenana, they have taken the school district jobs, the school district management, the judge, the largest local grocery store. They've been there over 100 years. They have that. And the thing of it is what will I do but to rule of law? Well, number one is everybody has the right to believe and be free in America. But what do you do when an aggression comes and they want to get in political power? Now, what they're doing is they're building these boroughs and all these political organizations. Then their own people are getting control in them and running everything, just like it happened in Nenana. It's like an outside invasion. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe in the Constitution and the rights and freedom and principles of others, but I do not believe in an invasion that hurts the people that live somewhere, that have a culture and a tradition to be free, and it be forced into somebody's outside philosophy of utopia. I mean, these people believe in this world utopia of properness, and it's crazy, and they're very diabolical. The word diabolical is kind of used in a comic book, but this is diabolical. Now, the things that's happened to me in my farm and losing my land and everything I went through, I fought all my life by being peaceful. That's one of the things they've done, is always try to get me caught into a violent situation. In my life, I have been in court over and over and over. I've got one pardon, full clemency from the governor one time, and I've had many false charges against me. This is the thing. I believe in living on my farm, running my two-cylinder tractors and being peaceful and left alone, but I wouldn't let them buckle me down. And so they just couldn't stand that somebody couldn't be overtaken by them. And it's gotten way out of control, and it's really hurt my neighbors. And I've been here a lot, and ladies and gentlemen, I miss my neighbors. They're not, they don't think like me, they don't believe like me, they're all different kind of people, but they're great, and I miss their friendship and things. Anyway, so the rule of law, when I go back to Alaska, the reason for this channel is I got to get some financial support. And it's not easier for me to go asking for help, because I went back to Alaska 3 times and I built a business, and I got attacked again by Superior Court, and they just wiped me out. And I'm going to tell you, their rulings were not legal, because in the lower courts, I won. So they couldn't pass the ball any farther, so they kicked my case into the upper Superior Court, and then they bounced it through 2 different judges, so they did not have to take any of the requirements of the earlier judge rulings to defend me. And I made a complete 100% buyout of the whole contract, and they threw that out, and then they come after me with such a financial obligation. It would have cost me $250,000 over a $30,000 loss. And it was just, I had no choice but stop. And they did this the same time I was running for governor, and this is another part. When I was running for governor, they put a warrant for my arrest. I couldn't believe it. We didn't know what it was. This is how bad this is getting in Alaska. So I'm at Fort Wainwright, Alaska, and I have many friends, and then federal police, you know, they know who I am, and they said, Bill, we need to talk to you. And so we go look, and there is a warrant on the computer system for me, and then, so then I'm really upset. So they said it was Sled Road, so we thought Sled Road was in North Pole, Alaska. So we're trying to figure out why I have a warrant for me there. It was a trespass warrant or something, and it got really complicated. So I called 3 hours to the dispatch, the Alaska State Troopers, because I'm in the middle of a campaign. Well, finally I find out that Sled Road, the road by my farm after I left, they had named it Sled Road. And they had me a warrant. I had no business of going there. I wasn't going there, but the court had released me back my combine, truck, and my John Deere tractor. Okay, what I gotta do is we need to stop my recording and go to chapter 2. So we're gonna stop it here, and then you'll have to go to the next video. And look at, I'm not a Hollywood movie fellow, so that's what it is. Anyway, thank you very much for watching my video. I'll complete on the next one. And God bless, thank you.